once again, great to have you with us here on Leading Edge. I'm Jeff Smith. Nearly 6 months ago, Toledo transitioned in an effort to put an end to gun violence. And we had the person in charge, the latest person in charge of that effort, share his goals right here. Toledo sits at 40 homicides this year, a stark contrast to the last few years. And today, we asked that same man, Malcolm Cunningham, how he's measuring success.
One of the key goals for us was to begin convening this kind of cross sector of folks that are engaged in addressing gun violence. So it is, of course, public safety, but it also includes community-based mental health. It also includes health systems. It also includes community-based organizations and grassroots organizations that are doing this work. So we've successfully been convening them since August. So that was a key goal for me. And we were also planning to launch a comprehensive plan for neighborhood safety. So the group of folks that are in that action table have been developing this plan, and they'll be ready for release in April of this year. So definitely moving in the right direction on that. And the other aspect, the thing that was quite important for me was to evaluate and then strengthen the Save Our Community initiative just based on best practices. So we're moving in the right direction on that, and are also kind of building up the capacity of our grassroots folks as well. So moving in the right direction, definitely have a long way to go.
Malcolm, one of the things that we talked about off camera was you said, and we want people to know we're taping this ahead of time this week, airing, of course, on Sunday and then online. But you said when you talk about the grassroots efforts, and I was kind of hearing kind of a neighborhood watch mentality. You said there are meetings even this past week that you're having with some of these groups. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So we have something called the Community Action Table, right? And it's that team of cross-disciplinary folks. And we also have organizations and individuals that are interested in supporting with safe routes to schools, right? That are interested in supporting with doing intervention whenever someone gets shot, that are interested in providing peer-to-peer support from mothers that have lost their children to gun violence. So we have all of those folks in the room, and we're working with them to develop plans and also just to deploy appropriately. If that does, I don't know if that answers your question, but we're moving, and it's strategic, and it's about bringing everyone together to develop an actual plan. So we're moving on one accord as opposed to all of the different parts moving in all of the different directions.
Let me ask you this, and this is a tough question, I'm sure, to answer, but when we talked before, the mayor at that time, 5, 6 months ago, back in July, was hanging his hat on the 40% reduction in the number of shootings over the course of the last however many weeks it's been since we chatted. We've seen shootings. We've had shots fired into houses. We've had young people lose their lives. And I'm sure it's troubling. How do you process that? How does your team process that?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's incredibly difficult. It's incredibly difficult to process. When it comes to our team, we've been very focused on making sure that they have the supports that they need. So we, of course, connect them to our EAP program, but also we've began a monthly wellness group where they gather together, they learn about different skills, whether it's mindfulness meditation, whether it's processing and journaling, in order to make sure that they're working on themselves so that they can pour from a full cup as opposed to an empty cup. On my end, I try to do the things that I enjoy in my life, whether it's going for a walk, whether it's gardening. But the reality is this is the work that we chose, right? And our North Star is saving people's lives and going further upstream so that they never even get to the point where they pick up a gun. So we carry that weight, but we're also trying to take care of ourselves as well. Absolutely.
When we see shootings that happen, we're looking at North, we're looking at South Toledo, we're looking at West. Where are the concern areas for you guys right now? Where are you putting a lot of your focus? Because early on it was, we're going to put some of our violence interrupters in the old West End, we're going to have them in the South End. Where is the focus right now?
So there's been a slight shift. We continue to have a presence with the Save Our Community initiative in the Junction and Englewood area, in the North Toledo, kind of the LaGrange area, and we recently were approved to move into the east side of Toledo as well. So we are focusing on those areas, but the other aspect of it is we have to think about population as well. We know that it's become younger. We know that some of the issues have become younger, right? We know that victims that are youth, that age range has gone down to around 16 or 17, unfortunately, right? So we have to think about that population wherever that population is. So we have that focus areas, but we're still expanding who we can do case management with, who we can work with. And also we have the school-based program as well that's inside of a couple of different schools. So it's still target areas, but it's also population. That's also population.
I wanted to ask you about that today. What is the message in the school-based population?
The message is there are alternative pathways. There are ways to mediate conflicts that don't have to lead to violence. And there are ways to advance peace. And there are ways to rectify harms. And that's really what the focus is for the school-based team. They are very similar to the street-based team, but we also needed them to ensure that they had certain competencies for working with younger people. So making sure that they have positive youth development training, that they have training in active listening, things of that nature that are more developmentally appropriate for folks that are school age.
I've got three more things that I want to cover. I want to cover investment by the city. I want to cover Cities United. And I also want to talk about the Boston University research we talked about 6 months ago. I'll let you start. What one do you want to choose first?
Let's go with Cities United. Let's go with Cities United.
Talk about what you're getting or gaining from them.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So Cities United the entire time has been a technical assistance partner, right? So what that looks like is we're considering building up the skill set for the Save Our Community program. What are the best practices across the country? Can you connect us with trainers that'll get us built up, right? So they brought in a group from Louisville that has been doing hands-on training. They've been doing visits with our street and school-based teams. We have a Rewire CBT training that's coming up actually this Thursday for ourselves and for community partners. So Cities United was able to connect us with that. They've also connected us to a national network. So we were able to take Sisters for Unity, the mothers that have lost their children to violence, to Atlanta for the Cities United convening. And they were able to connect with a group out of New York, a group out of Cleveland, and also with the White House Office of Violence Prevention, so that they could better understand best practices, so that they could be plugged into resources, and so that the teams can really see what this work looks like when it's mature.
A
Right?
lot of
So,
stuff happening behind the scenes.
a lot of stuff behind the scenes.
Malcolm, $2 million announced this week going into the program. What's that money mean for it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So about 1.25 of that 2 million is going towards staffing, is going towards support for community-based initiatives. So beautification efforts that are targeted towards areas that have a high risk of violence, rapid relocation when there's an incident that has occurred and we have to get the young folks and the family out of that household, addressing some of the transportation and the SDOH needs, community programming, things of that nature. So it's, of course, staffing. I mean, that's always going to take up a part of the funding, right? And the other aspect of it is direct investment in community. So that other $750,000 will be going towards community efforts. So that comprehensive plan that I mentioned earlier is going to inform how much of those dollars are distributed long term. So.
And finally, you had some high-tech data that you were using from Boston University. How has that helped?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, so they had to. We've returned to it a few times. I think research is almost always an iterative process, right? So, they took another look at the data, based it on the different types of issues that occur with housing and walking distance, because we know that the way we experience community is by navigating community, right? So, they've identified areas that have a very high risk, about 7 times as high of a risk of violence based on disrepair, whether we're talking foundation, broken windows, tree canopy, things of that nature. And we are using that in order to inform where the dollars go. We're hoping to work with, the CDBG dollars to make sure that the roof repair grants are going in the right direction, that code enforcement is going in the right direction. So really, it's a way to bring that data to the entire city and to the community so that we can address these issues longer term.
Stay right there. When we come back, school overcrowding. Who's responsible? Welcome back. Great to have you with us. Perrysburg Superintendent Tom Hostler says the number of students in the district is outpacing the number of seats. And he says it's happening at every grade level. They went to voters in November with a bond request. It failed. Meantime, growth projections for housing and students in the district compared to others in Northwest Ohio are off the charts. Joining me next was Perrysburg Mayor Tom Mackin to get at the bottom of this.
They're kind of go hand in hand. I mean, the school district and what the school brings to community are an integral part of what makes a community a success. So it's usually a very cooperative effort to make sure that we're working not necessarily hand in glove all the time, because there will be issues that are not the same, but we're working step by step to try and get things accomplished for the betterment of the city. So I think that's always one thing you're trying to work on. And certainly a big part of that is communication and making sure that everybody's on the same page as to what's going on. So I think that's the basic part. And the other part is the school district is really a facilitator, a business driver in a lot of ways to what a community is about. I mean, the school district itself brings in jobs and revenues, of course, in Perrysburg, attracts people to the community. So those are all things that have to be put into the equation when you're trying to do what's best for the community and what's best for the school district.
Let me ask you specifically, when a levy fails, when you hear the superintendent saying, we have less space for more students and it continues to be that way, it starts conversations about growth and the control of growth. And that's really why I wanted to have you on here today, is because from a governmental standpoint, obviously you can't turn away business. You can't turn away expansion. But I guess in that same vein, when you see what's happening with the schools, can you?
I think there's kind of the analysis of what's best for the community. And in Perrysburg's case, what's attracting people to the district and to the community is the schools. Now, if you were to ask people, they say that the schools is a prime reason why they're moving into the community. So you want to make sure that that is preserved and that's enhanced. What the city can do is several things within its control. Now, one thing that complicates the Perrysburg School District's situation is that it's out not just in the city, but it's in the Perrysburg Township and Middleton Township. And so those add to it. But what the city can do is both control how development occurs and what type of development occurs. And in our case, there's also the issue of we are basically been a suburban community, a rooftop community. And we're changed over the last 20 years to be more independent, have more business in it. And since I've been mayor, we've taken some steps to enhance that process that lessens the burn on taxpayers. For example, Mercy Hospital's expanded. ProMedica has expanded its facilities. There was on Echo Junction Road, there's the Cat and the Peterbilt project that has brought in jobs. By diversifying our tax base, you of course lessen the burden for residents to pay. That doesn't lessen in our community, that's still a large part of what the burden is. And it's also that also means that people are coming to attract those jobs. ProMedica's jobs and Mercy's jobs are attracting more people who want to live in the city of Perrysburg. So economic growth is part of that. Also part of that is our land use plan, which we just did a strategic plan last year. And that kind of sets out what's going to be protected for economic development, how growth is going to occur. And so that now the next step, which we're going to do this year, is the zoning code to make sure that things are zoned in such a way consistent with what the community wants. And a big part of both of those projects has been community input, community outreach, and efforts to make sure that we're growing in the way the community wants to grow.
Is there a moment, though, and this is obviously kind of tongue in cheek, but is there a moment where Tom Hostler says to Tom Mackin, "You're killing me," or he reaches out
I think he says that every day,
or he reaches out to the township trustees, or he reaches out to Middleton Township and says, "Help me here, help me," because we want to continue to provide this education for the people who are seeking it out, but we just can't do it.
Well, I think one of the bigger issues really is also how the state funds schools. And that's a larger question, kind of beyond the scope of what was in my control. But that's a much larger issue and probably something that needs to be sorted out. It is kind of anti-logic to say that you're a successful community, that you're encouraging growth. You have the educational school system that in a lot of ways is attracting people because it's such well-known and well-respected educational system that growth is now creating a burden. So that is a bigger statewide issue that I think we really have to have the conversation about, and there really should be some change. I think it is frustrating for everyone in the community when they see how the impact of quality has a detrimental effect, and that shouldn't be the case. These are problems of growth that should be encouraging and supporting each other, not kind of penalizing the successful entity. And I think that's kind of the situation that Perrysburg's in.
What does it say to you in our last couple of minutes? What does it say to you with the voters rejecting the levy?
Well, I think one of the things, and I know that I was a supporter of the levy, and our kids have gone through the Perrysburg school system, and we moved here 33 years ago because of the schools. So I think that that's one of the things that has to be conveyed. Everybody knows there's a need. I think they did a good job explaining why there is a need and what the plan is. It is very expensive, and those kind of things are expensive. So I think that trying to do it in the next phase and breaking it down, and I think the school board is going to do that. From my understanding, is they're evaluating the next steps, and that's something I think from the administration's point of view, from the city community's point of view, is we want to continue to be supportive and do what's best for the community and the school district, and we're willing to work to be part of that.
So I guess finally, you're hearing the calls. You're hearing what the school district is saying and the problems it's going through. And I guess as a city administration, you're feeling your take on all of that is our hands are tied, or the state needs to take care of it.
Well, I think it's a combination of everybody could do better. I mean, the state level issues have to be addressed. We have to do a better job as a community to make sure that people understand that growth is going to happen, why it's occurring, and then making sure that the growth that does occur is consistent with both the community we want, I mean, to keep that historic charm, but still continue to expand and attract high level of residents into the community, but also to expand our tax base. And so we have been working with that in the city council level and an administrative level to diversify our tax base. So there's lots of different pieces that go into this. And when everybody is working together, and I think for the most part, everybody is trying to say, what's in the best interest of the city of Perrysburg? How can we accomplish it? And what are the steps to accomplish it? And how do we both justify the costs and explain the rationale for it to the community? And I think that that's certainly an ongoing process, and the failure of the levy demonstrated that more work needs to be done there. But I think that that's doable. I think that Perrysburg has traditionally supported the schools, and I think it will in the future.
Stay with us. More to come right after this. Welcome back. In our final minutes, he's a recovering addict. He's an author. He's an Ironman, and he just got back from New York, where Kiss, yes, we're going to bring Kiss into this conversation, played some of its last shows. You've got a connection with this band that I want to get into in just a little bit. But Todd Crandall, thank you so much. Racing for Recovery here, joining us on Leading Edge. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Let me start off by asking, define recovery for me. What does that mean to you? What does it mean to the people you work with in Racing for Recovery?
Sobriety means actually living, being happy that you're living, and fulfilling your life's purpose. A lot of people think sober is just getting off of drugs and alcohol. It's not. It's a start. It's really about finding and healing from the trauma that led to a choice to use drugs and alcohol. But in sobriety, it's all about living, and certainly, meeting Kiss is a part of actually living. It's
I got you. Talk about the clients you come into contact with, the ones who are trying to get their lives back on track, and how do you define recovery for them? How do they define it?
I just got done running the Racing for Recovery support group meeting tonight, and one of the common themes I kept hearing from everybody was they were desperate for something new. And walking into Racing for Recovery, they described it as feeling love, hopeful, supportive, kindness. And to me, that's what people who are battling addiction need. They just need somebody to say, hey man, it's okay. How can we help you? And then to watch them transform into living lives of productivity is remarkable.
Letting the embarrassment go, letting the guard down. I've heard that year after year when we talk about this subject. You just released a book, 100. Talk about it.
I released a picture book of my 111 Ironmans since 1999, so 25 years of doing Ironman. And it's not just about look at all the Ironmans. It shows the emotion in pictures. It shows the travel in pictures. It's an example of what really can be done in sobriety over a quarter of century. And it's something I never thought I would be doing. I mean, I never thought I'd be alive, but to put an event that I've been doing for a long time that was actually the foundation of Racing for Recovery, it's been a great marketing tool, and to put this book into pictures is, it's pretty special.
What'd you learn about you during that process? I know this isn't the first book.
No, it's actually my fifth book, but this one, I learned a lot about myself.
Yeah.
I learned that I can endure and have endured a lot over the course of starting Racing for Recovery and keeping it going to the success that it is today.
I know this moves fast, but I want to ask about KISS and just the kismet, the relationship. It's grown. You follow this group, and you've got a connection like none other.
I had KISS bedspreads as a kid, and I just was meeting the guys in Chicago and was at their last show and talking to Paul Stanley about how he handles just negativity over his entire career. Was one of the most profound conversations I've had with somebody in my entire life. It was awesome.
And they are right there in your corner, and each show you've gone to, you've had a moment with them, I see.
I have, and it's always been focused on sobriety.
Yeah.
I mean, to have Paul Stanley call me an inspiration is a little bit of a trip, but they're down-to-earth people, and they've never gotten involved in drugs and alcohol.
Yeah.
So
Racing for Recovery, Todd Crandall, we appreciate it as always. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back. Welcome back for a final time. I want to say a big thank you to all my guests this week. Also, a thank you to you for spending some time with us. By the way, if you missed any of our interviews, check out the WTOL 11 YouTube page.